That's going to be fun.
I would like to welcome everybody for coming tonight, particularly on this night, which is really very hot, and participating in this symposium. Now, on behalf of our panel speakers and we would like to acknowledge the original custodians of the country throughout Australia and of the land on which we meet today, Bunwarong and Wurrung, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and community, and pay our respect to them, their culture, and to their elders past, present, and emerging. We would also like to acknowledge all who have brought their tradition to this sacred land and who also honor that it is and always will be Aboriginal land. So we gather here today to discuss the influence of Khalil Gibran's work and share a parallel of his life with 3 Australian Lebanese sisters who migrated to Australia in the late 60s with their parents. Now we're going to give you a short snippet of our bios, all of us, very quickly. So I myself, I'm an architect, casual lecturer at MIT, environmental and social sustainability advocate, big time in Melbourne. I'm passionate about creating spaces and forms that seamlessly connect with the natural world, promote well-being, and support positive emotional energy. So being a member of the Australian Historical Lebanese Society, I work with the other members towards an educational and cultural exchange of Australian Lebanese in Melbourne. Judy Saba, who's going to be facilitating today the symposium, is a cross-cultural psychologist and public speaker with extensive experience in applied diversity training in public and private sector organizations. She has delivered papers at numerous conferences, including the International Gibran Conference on Peace and Humanity, in a world of global conflict in Washington in 2012. Hadia is a Renaissance woman who has studied science, law, and medicine. And apparently she's starting a PhD now. She's not going to stop.
Overachiever.
Yeah. Her professional and community life spans over 5 decades in Victoria and New South Wales. She has made extensive contribution to medical education and training, and to medical regulation and administrative law. She is a humanitarian, an active member of the Medical Association for Prevention of War, the chair of its Peace Fund, and a fundraiser for various charities, including the Red Cross in Lebanon. Loubna, maybe she was under pressure from her sister, she had to become a GP. So after she graduated from the medical school and worked across many disciplines from writing, acting, and directing to co-founding the Sydney Andalusian Arabic Choir. She has won the Sydney Gibran Prize for her writings. Through her satirical storytelling, she looks at language and the power of language in appropriating voice, identities, and the exclusivities of rights and entitlements. Bouthaina, the youngest of all, trained and worked as a science teacher, creative dance teacher, and later worked as a dance movement therapist for varying needs and various disabilities, including elderly, oncology patients, as well as people interested in self-knowledge and self-development. Bouthaina has experience in teaching and choreographing in classical ballet, creative dance, and Indian dance, into which she brings her study of Sanskrit and the philosophies of the mystics, both ancient and modern. So please join me in welcoming Judy, Hadia, Loubna, and Bouthaina.
We want to make this a conversation, so when we do that, well, I'm going to be drawing you in on it as well. So any wonderful expressions, or if I see there's, eyebrows are raised from interest, I'm going to be asking you what you're thinking. We want it to be a bit live and a bit dynamic, so I hope that's okay with you. But just to get us started, I just want to, you may have seen in some of the publicity, there was a quote which says, and I'm going to read it to you because it was a quote that I wrote quite some time ago. I'm grateful and in awe of the many scholars, academics, and learned souls who've read and written of Gibran. And when I, as a humble reader, and that's what I am, hold his words and his works, and I inhale his messages, or when I am immersed in his art and dream his dreams, then he speaks to me in my language. and I know him through my lens, through my story. And I think that's one of the things I find very exciting about Gibran, is that his story is our story, and the connections are quite obvious. So I'm just going to pull together a couple of threads just to get us started. As a preface to our conversation with Hadia, Loubna and Bouthaina, joining the dots between the link between migration, women, Gibran and the world today is really important. And I guess the feminine in Gibran's life, the migration experience and identity, is something so critical in our world today. As far as identity goes, there has been no more challenging time in our world than at this point in time, where being Arab, being Lebanese, being bilingual creates a whole range of challenges and a whole range of assumptions. Gibran's works are all about identity, and not only identity of the self, but the institutions in which we find ourselves. And there are many stories that I canvass as a psychologist around people's personal stories about being who they are, where they are in this point in time, and they are precious stories. Migration, the refugee experience and movement of people, it's not new. What's crucial in our world today is the impact of perceptions, of assumptions, of hate, and even racism, and how the focus on the other seems to continually fuel the challenges faced by people who are in the global eye. We are today in a world that craves empathy and compassion, and Gibran wrote of this, and much of his pain was articulated in terms of lack of compassion. What migrates when we migrate is key. About women. The conversation this evening is all about women in these contexts, and I can't believe that I'm sitting here with these four amazing women. But if I can just ask you to quickly have a look at this next slide, which I should have been moving along as I spoke. Gibran wrote, "Women open the windows of my eyes and the doors of my spirit. Had it not been for the woman mother, the woman sister, the woman friend, I would have been sleeping amongst those who seek the tranquility of a world with their snoring." He was a bit of a comic. The women in Gibran's life and the presence and representations of the feminine divine are cast as absolutely pivotal in all aspects of his expressions and of his creativity. The representations in his art of the feminine divine exude not only strength but purpose. The other earthly divine women, the earthly ones, all played a role in his love and in his life, as muse, as mentors, as teachers, as lovers, as challengers. They incited his passion, they raised his pain, they confronted his dread and his imagination and language, and more than anything, they were reflected in his creativity. There was Mary Haskell, Sultana Tabet, Maziedi, who had enduring love for, but he never met face to face. Charlotte Teller, whose beauty captivated him, and in fact, whom Mary Haskell said of her, "I have not that," meaning sex, "to give Gibran. She has. I can give Gibran's work form, while she can give him energy to create that form." Gibran's mother, Camilla, Kemli, a word in Arabic that in itself translates to complete, or the perfect one, strong, adventurous, and a risk-taker, who left her homeland with young children, many would say to escape a tormenting husband, and who was eventually imprisoned for some form of tax evasion. She wanted her children away from that. But mainly it was to provide an opportunity for her beloved children in America to create another life. She had been previously widowed in Brazil. She returns to Bshadri in Lebanon, the village where Gibran now is laid to rest, with her son Peter from the first marriage, and then she marries Khalil Saad Gibran and has 3 more children, Gibran Khalil, Mariana and Sultana. Beautiful, talented, this woman played the oud. She was determined that it was she that was the beginning of Gibran's existential growth, moving them to Boston, and where migration etched into their psyche the struggles that would strengthen and also break them. Her death devastates Gibran, and one of his many portraits of her depicts his mother, and I think I have that portrait here. It is there. beg your pardon everybody, this one here, depicts his mother in front of a dying lioness. He thought his mother was absolutely incredibly great. Mariana, his sister, who's also in that picture, she never married. She devoted her life to Gibran and to his creativity, after losing both their mother and 2 other siblings within months of each other. She was a seamstress, Mariana, and her love was shared through each stitch as she sewed into the clothes of her brother. She sewed the thread of support that would sustain him through his time in Boston. In The Prophet, Gibran wrote of clothes. When they said, Almatra, tell us of your clothes. He said, your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. Mariana was to be the one who worked and supported him, and it was through her that his creative growth became quite possible. But then we had Mary Haskell, and we can't overlook the work of this woman. Gibran left most of his, half of his estate to her, and those works exist in the Telfer Museum in Savannah, Georgia. Mary Haskell, we devoured her letters, and any of you in the room who have read the letters of Gibran and Mary Haskell will know it's what I take to bed with me whenever I feel like I need to remember what love's all about. The intimacy of connection and her guidance of Gibran was love in all its ethereal glory. It was an intellectual and amorous relationship. She was his benefactress, his muse, and in many forms his place of peace. Although they never married, their letters to each other captured in the book The Love Letters are testament to a love that transcends earthly desire, and every letter is imbued with the intensity of that love. In this record of those letters, there is one reference that I love more than many. When I am happy, dear Mary, I read your letters. When the mist overwhelms the I in me, I take 2 or 3 of your letters out of the box and I read them, and I reread them, and I reread them. They remind me of my true self. Each and every one of us, dear Mary, must have a resting place somewhere. The resting place of my soul is a beautiful grove where my knowledge of you lives. And those of you that have seen the exhibition will see the quote where he says, when I die, take my heart out and give it to Mary, and then bury my body in the village in Psharri. I don't think that happened, by the way. Barbara Young, and this is the final woman that I'll mention, although I'm getting the wind up. Let me jump from that, but Barbara Young was quite crucial. It's going forward, yeah, it's fine. Let there be spaces in your togetherness, he writes about love. And this is critical in our introduction to our conversation, because he always placed women not only as equal, but far greater than men. And they were in his words. I want to just flick back to a photograph, because I think some of the things that are crucial in understanding, and it's this photograph here, and in a moment I'll pass around some copies of this so you can have a closer look. But for anyone who looks at this, you'll notice that there's something quite unusual about it. And it took me a while, and it took me lots of research and lots of talking, but you'll notice that it represents kind of the crucifixion. Yeah, that's what we immediately think of. But what we notice in this picture and in this depiction, is that one of the hands where the woman is crucified is on the solar plexus, this part of the body. The other hand is placed on the heart of the person to her left, because Gibran believed that a woman loves with her soul and her heart. So these are the intricacies in his work that really lead us to not want to just look at them, but to ponder them. Okay, so I guess I want to start with a very